Good evening, friends, and welcome back to another edition of Paisano's Music and Vinyl Talk. I am your host, as always, Paisano. Welcome. Tonight, we're going to talk about a massive album from a public standpoint. Critically, I'm not sure how it did, but the public sure ate this up. Meatloaf and his 1977 album Bat Out of Hell. This puppy only sold 43 million copies, 16 in the US, and I think 24 in Australia alone, which is incredible. Which means the rest of the world only bought about 3 million, which is kind of weird. But needless to say, it's one of the best-selling albums of all time. And it came out of nowhere. Nobody saw this coming. And this has a huge background. It was based on a play, a rock musical by Jim Steinman, who is Meatloaf's partner here. He's pictured on the back with the girl in the dress giving him a hug. It's Meatloaf there. They had toured together as part of the National Lampoon's Road Show in the 70s, doing over-the-top musical acts. And Jim Steinman wrote the entire album from start to finish, and Meatloaf, in all his theatric glory, performed them. And what a performer he was. He had a great voice. He had an incredible over-the-top stage presence. And the songs were very, very good. Very strong album. Rightfully so. It had a little bit of everything. It had the ballads, had the rock. Come to find out, in the research I've been doing on this album, two members of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, Roy Bittan, who was his piano player, and Max Weinberg, his drummer, both played extensively on this. Todd Rundgren produced it and played guitar on the whole thing. And although not listed on the copy that I have, which is a reissue from the mid-'80s, Jimmy Iovine, who went on to produce Tom Petty and a lot of other huge acts, had a hand in producing some of these tracks as well. So he was pretty well connected. He knew some people, even though really nobody knew who he was. He had done an album in 1971 with a singer by the name of Stoney. Then the name of the album was Stoney and Meatloaf. I really don't know too much about this. Female vocalist Sean Murphy accompanied him on this. And they had met while Meatloaf performed in a Broadway production of Hair back in the very, very early 70s. And this Stoney and Meatloaf didn't chart. And from what I understand, it's described as psychedelic soul, which I gotta be honest with you, I've never heard of the album until I was doing research for this one. But God knows everybody knew who Meatloaf was after this. And he had a follow-up called Dead Ringer in 1981. This also was written entirely by Jim Steinman, and it didn't. It's described as a commercial and critical disappointment. I mean, this was a tough act to follow. Come on, you're following this. You're following a monster, and it's going to be nearly impossible to live up to. But he had a hard time finding a record company that would put this thing out. He was rejected everywhere he went. And a small label called Cleveland, which was a subsidiary of Epic, picked it up and put it out. And it made them a lot of money. This had a number of songs that you hear to this day on the classic rock stations. Let's go over the track listing. Bat Out of Hell. You took the words right out of my mouth. Heaven Can Wait. All Revved Up with No Place to Go. 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. Paradise by the Dashboard Light. And For Crying Out Loud. There's not many songs on here, but let me tell you something. They were all pretty damn good. Paradise by the Dashboard Light is an epic unto itself. Comes in at over 8 minutes anyways. And Meatloaf sings with a female counterpart by the name of Ellen Foley. And, Paradise by the Dashboard Light, they're talking, reminiscent about a teenage encounter in a car when, a young Meatloaf would be trying to, have his way with his teenage girlfriend. And it had a middle section that was narrated by Phil Rizzuto, who's a New York Yankees broadcaster in the 70s and 80s. And Phil Rizzuto, being the, Roman Catholic, he claimed he didn't know anything about any sexual connotations associated with his speech, which is kind of funny. I'm sure he knew exactly what he was doing. He was no dummy. But it was a huge hit. It was over 8 minutes long, but they trimmed it down to 5 minutes and 32 seconds for the radio. And it's a great song. Great song. It's probably the highlight of the album, along with 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. All Revved Up and No Place to Go is real good, too. You took the words right out of my mouth. Good song. I mean, it's a great album. 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. Got to be one of the saddest love songs you'll ever want to hear. Performed beautifully by Meatloaf. And this did have a follow-up. It had a follow-up in the early 90s, I believe, where he tried to reprise this a little bit. Yeah, he had some Bat Out of Hell, Back into Hell, came out in 1993. And a lot of the songs on here were rehashed from the first album. But Meatloaf sadly left us in 2022 at the age of 74. I tell you, just this album alone was a massive contribution to music. So this is a surprisingly clean copy, since considering I've had it since the mid-'80s. It's in very good condition, since a lot of the other ones I bought around the same time aren't holding up so good, at least from a standard of the album jacket. A lot of ring wear and general things that happen to albums over time. But this is the Epic label here, with the Cleveland subsidiary also listed on the label. All right. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed our little chat about Meatloaf. And hopefully you're enjoying our discussions in general. If you are, please like, and more importantly, subscribe. What will Paisano dig up next week? Tune in and find out. Thank you, and good night, YouTube.